Hey everyone, this is Dylan, and today we're going to be doing a movie review for you guys. So the movie we're reviewing today is Sick. Now this is the big Kevin Williamson's return to slasher movies. He wrote this movie and produced it, and it is a Peacock original, I believe. So you can only watch it on Peacock as of right now. Maybe it'll go to iTunes or something like that for purchase. So let's get into what this movie is about. So Sick takes place on April 3rd, 2020. So this is roughly 2-ish weeks after the COVID pandemic started in the United States, or at least once it started getting kind of crazy. We are following two college students, Parker and Miri, and they are going to Parker's family's lake house that's pretty secluded. There's really nobody around them. So they're going to, I guess, stay there a couple of weeks or something. It's not really super clear what their plan is, but they go there to stay. And while they're there happens to be a masked killer that is trying to hunt them down. And that's where I'm going to leave the synopsis. Let's talk about Kevin Williamson and the writing of this movie. So Kevin Williamson, of course, is known for Scream and a couple other slashers. I am a big Kevin Williamson fan. This movie did not really seem like a Kevin Williamson movie to me. Like, the dialogue was not very Kevin Williams-esque. Like, it just seemed like a normal dialogue. If you had told me this movie was written by somebody else, I would have been like, yeah, of course. I definitely would not have ever pegged it as a Kevin Williamson movie unless I had known beforehand that it was a Kevin Williamson written movie. So that was a bit disappointing. It is extremely short. It's 1 hour and 23 minutes, so not long at all. And things seem to go by pretty quickly, so it does have some good pacing. I think that the character development is a bit thin. We don't really have time to spend with any of these characters, and we don't necessarily care for them all that much. And this is a slasher movie in the technical sense, but there's only really 4 potential people that could be like slashed in this movie. So I do find it kind of interesting that it's being labeled as a slasher. I would say this is more of a home invasion type movie rather than a slasher. Let's talk about the elephant in the room of this movie being set during COVID and having a big portion of this movie be COVID reliant. Unfortunately, I think that we could have done without the setting this during COVID. I think you could have very easily changed this movie around to where it wasn't so COVID related, because I think that we were kind of, it definitely took me back to a place that I don't really care to remember that much, because it was definitely an interesting time for everyone, something that has never happened in any of our lifetimes. So it was not the best to be watching. And especially since I had went through the entire pandemic without having COVID until just last month, when the beginning of the month I ended up catching COVID and I was basically out for the entire month of December. It was pretty bad. I didn't have to be hospitalized or anything, but it was a feeling that I did not wish to have again. And it is still a serious thing. And I hope that if anything comes from this movie or this review, that you still take COVID seriously, because it's still out there and it can still get you. Almost 3 years after it started, I lasted that entire time. I did everything right, and then I ended up catching it. So it is definitely not something fun, and definitely not something that you actually want to have. All right, so now I am going to do a spoiler portion of this video. And if you have not watched this movie, then you can turn this review off and come back after you've watched it. Or if you want to be spoiled, then let's talk about spoilers. So really the only major spoiler that can be said about this movie, other than I guess who dies, is the motivation. And this motivation, I don't know. I mean, I get it, but I didn't particularly like it. Like, it seems a bit extreme. So the killers end up being the family of a college student who Parker went to a party with and was making out with, who she ended up giving COVID to, and he ended up dying from COVID. So this movie basically turned into a home invasion or revenge movie, and I can understand, of course, where the family is coming from, but it just seemed kind of like a preachy to the choir type of thing. Also, a lot of the stuff that they were doing didn't make a ton of sense, especially since it was the beginning of the pandemic, where all of the stuff was supposed to be done. Like, they took their masks off after they got to the thing and made sure to test her for COVID and found out that she was asymptomatic, but they still had the mask off. They were probably 6 feet apart, but still, I definitely don't think I would be in that vicinity of a person that had COVID, especially that early in the pandemic. It also wasn't clear where this movie took place. So to have COVID that early in the pandemic, I feel like may not have actually happened. Like, if this movie took place in like New York City or LA or any of the like major metropolitan areas, I think that it would have made more sense. But this movie seemingly took place in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest, and I just don't think that Parker would have gotten COVID. What about Mary? She was around Parker the whole time, even though she was asymptomatic. Like, why didn't she get COVID? So I think that there is a little bit of plot hole issues. I think that the idea of this movie was good, but ultimately it wasn't. I didn't necessarily like the motivation and the entire reasoning behind this movie, if that makes sense. Like, I liked the movie, but take out the COVID stuff, and I think that it's a pretty decent movie, especially for being small budget and pretty short as well. So my rating of this movie was a 3.5 out of 5. Like I said, I thought that this movie was pretty decent, but I didn't like the, I guess, main purpose that this movie was written about. Like, I didn't like the COVID angle to it, but I liked the movie if you take that stuff out, if that makes sense. And that is it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of Sick on Peacock, whether you liked it or you didn't like it, and why. And remember, if you're not already subscribed and you'd like to be, please hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a like if you liked it. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day. Bye.